Welcome to Teaching Training Sessions 2020, organized by Sección de Idiomas de la Facultad de Humanidades USAC, Embajada de los Estados Unidos en Guatemala, con Asociación de los Jóvenes Exbecarios del Departamento de Estado AGERE. My name is Gabriela Escobar and I'll be hosting this conference. Thank you so much for being with us. Before starting, these are some instructions for you to follow. We will have 10 minutes for questions and answers at the end of the conference, in which I will be reading questions and comments you post directly in the live chat. Don't forget to subscribe both our channels, Idiomas USAC and TTS Conferences, so you can stay tuned on all the conferences we will be having during the week. Again, thank you for joining us in the conferences. In this conference, student engagement, in charge of them, Ixchely Saloj, whom we warmly welcome in name of the Organizing Commission of TTS 2020. Her name is Paola Saloj. She is 21 years old and she is from Sololá. She is currently studying licenciatura en Pedagogía con orientación en Administración y Evaluación Educativa. She was part of Access Program 2014 to 2015 and Foster Team Third Program in 2016 at Universidad del Valle de Guatemala, Campus Altiplano. She took the TAC course, Teaching Assistant Certificate, and CIT Best Practices in TESOL in 2018. In 2019, she took the ITOT program, Initial Trainer of Trainers. This program was developed in Chiquimula Department, and the same year she finished PEM in English at Universidad del Valle de Guatemala, Campus Altiplano. She has been an English teacher for 3 years. She has worked in public and private schools from her town. She is currently working as trainer in the TTS program in Sololá, and she is an English teacher at Prosperity English program from San Andrés, Temetabaj, Sololá. Pen Saloj, the time is all yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gabriela. Thank you a lot for the presentation and also for the opportunity to be here presenting this topic to everyone. Hello. The name of our workshop is Student Engagement. So in this workshop, we will talk about and also learn about some techniques and strategies that you can use and apply with your students when you come back to your face-to-face classes, right? But also you can adapt some of these techniques and strategies for your classes online. So thank you so much for the space. So we will start with the activity, with the workshop. So I'm starting with presenting the objectives. So the objectives that we have for this workshop are the following. So by the end of the session, you participants will be able to define what student engagement means. Also, we're going to experience 2 moments where students are and aren't being engaged. We're going to identify factors that affect and help students' engagement, evaluate a criteria for students' engagement, and we're going to apply criteria by observing 3 different activities. And the last one, learn about 2 techniques to engage students since the first day of classes, right? So we're going to start with our first activity, which is a brainstorming activity. So what I want you to do is, if you can go to this link, the answer garden, I will ask Ms. Gabriela if you can share the link with the participants so that they can go to the platform. Okay, so what we're going to do in this activity is the following. As you can see, I have a question here. So it says, what comes to your mind when you hear about student engagement? So I would like to think about a word or a specific word that describe what student engagement is for you. And I would like you to type your answer so that everyone can see what you think about a student engagement. Okay? So okay. So once you are in the platform, I will appreciate if you can write your word. So think about a word that describes what student engagement is for you. What do you think it is? What comes to your mind when you hear about student engagement? Okay. What is student engagement for you? I'm still waiting. Okay. Hello, everyone. Commitment. Okay. Okay. As you can see here, we have already some of the ideas. So for you, engagement, I'm sorry, is organization. You connect something, connection, interest, responsibility, teamwork, commitment to exactly excitement, attention, study hard. Okay. Curiosity, motivation, good relationship. Exactly. Okay, so there are some here who are writing in the chat box as well. So thank you so much for your participation. So what else do you think? Connection with the class, exactly. Okay, I'm reading also your comments. Connection with the class, okay. So as you can see, you have many ideas about student engagement, which is great because that will be very helpful for me to connect all the knowledge to this workshop, right? Okay, thank you. So thank you so much to all the teachers who could answer, who could share their knowledge about this topic. Okay, we have more. Okay, good relationship, empathy, group work. Okay, so thank you so much. We're going to go back to the presentation. Okay. Okay, so as you could see, for student engagement, we have our own definition, right? We know we have our own knowledge about this. And what I'm going to do now is to present you two definitions that I found. I selected these two definitions because they got my attention. They were like very these two definitions involve all the aspects that what student engagement is. So I have these two for you, these two definitions for you. And it says the first one, the degree of attention, curiosity, interest, optimism, and passion that students show when they are learning and being taught. I took this definition from the Glossary of Education Reform created by the Great Schools Partnership. And I have a second definition. It says engagement may be defined as students' cognitive investment in, active participation with, and emotional commitment to learning particular content. And I took this definition from Williams' book. So as you can see, and as I said at the beginning, that these two definitions got my attention because they involve all the aspects, all the important facts about student engagement, right? So as you can see here, there are some words that you use in the previous activity: curiosity, right? And also participation as well. So these two definitions that we have here, you also mentioned in the previous activity, right? So what I would like you to do now is to select one of these definition, the one that you consider matches with the definition or the knowledge that you already know about student engagement. So I'm going to read your comments here. I have, for this first definition, A and B. Which definition meets the knowledge or the idea that you have about student engagement? So I'm going to be reading here your comments. So which definition meets the idea or the knowledge that you have about student engagement? So according to what you share, according to what you know, according to what other teachers share in the previous activity. So let's see. A, okay. B, okay, A. Okay, right. So as you can see, there are some teachers who are already typing here their answers. Yes, so as I said, we have our own definition, but here we have two definitions that that other people wrote about, so we can like learn from them as well, right? Okay, so thank you so much for your comments. Thank you so much for your participation. We're going to continue with the activity. Okay, so before we go into the content, I would like you to ask you these two questions. The first one is, how do you engage your students in your class? How do you do it? Through videos, through games? How do you engage your students in your class? So let's see what you have. I'm reading here your comments. Let's answer the first question. How do you engage your student in your class? How do you usually do it? How do you engage your students in your class? Okay, build confidence and rapport with my students. Games, audios and videos. Games and videos, right. Stories, you also use stories, videos. Okay, so as you can see, there are many ways, many techniques that you use to encourage your students in your class, right? Now, my next question for you is, what do you usually take into consideration to engage your students? What do you usually take into consideration? Is age important for you? Okay, activities. So what do you usually take into consideration to engage your students? Is age important for you? Asking questions. Okay, their opinions, exactly. Learning styles, yeah, that's something very important. Group work activities, exactly, their interest, opinions, Okay, yes, their needs as well, like topics that are meaningful for them. Exactly. Okay. Exactly. Take into account their interests. Good, exactly. Okay. So great. Thank you so much for participating. Okay. So according to what you're saying, and also about a definition, all the ideas that we know about this topic, I'm gonna present you two different scenarios. Okay. So what I would like you to do now is to observe and also pay attention to these two scenarios. And please take notes of the reaction and action of these students that they have in these two classes, okay? So I want you to take notes about this two aspects and also to think about why they have that reaction. Why do they have that? Why do they do those? Why do they behave in that way? Okay. So first, I'm gonna present two scenarios for you. So you need to take notes about the reaction and actions and think about why they react in that way or that why they behave in that way. Okay, so let's get ready and let's start. Okay, so this is the first scenario. This is a second grade of middle school. In this class, there are 35 students, and the topic of the day is adverbs of frequency. So this day, the English teacher, entered in the class, and some students stood up, and some asked permission to go to the restroom. And guess what? These students didn't come back. Teacher started with the class by explaining and writing the topic on the board. Teacher didn't have any poster or any visual material for the class. So the teacher only had a marker and also the whiteboard to write the topic and explain the structure, okay? And some students on the back, as in the picture that we have here, started bothering each other while teacher was explaining. Some students who were sitting in front got distracted by looking around. So they were in front, but they got distracted with some posters that they had in their classrooms. Teacher asked a question regarding the class, and all the students were quiet. They didn't say anything. But there was a student who was the only one who could answer, right? Okay, so this is the scenario number one. So as you can see here, we have different reactions and different behaviors. So I hope you are taking notes about this, okay? So now let's go to the scenario number two. This is number two. So as you can see, this is the same grade. The number of students is 30 and the same topic, adverbs of frequency. So in this class, teacher entered in the classroom. Students were very tired because of the previous class. So as you know, they always switch classes when the 45 minutes finished, right? So they switch classes. So the teacher gave these students 1 minute to go to the restroom or to go out. But they had to come back when the minute was over, right? So they only had 1 minute to go out, and then when the time was over, they had to come back, right? And then the teacher started with a class with a short game called guessing the action or guessing the verb. I think you have taught this in your classes. So first, the teacher participated, like demonstrated activity. Then students took turns to pass in front and do the activity. Everyone had the opportunity to participate, and they were very happy about that. Okay, so after that activity, after the guessing the action activity, teacher told students that they would talk about how often they do their favorite activities and hobbies. Okay, so he introduces the class. All the students started sharing about their everyday activities and things that they like to do. Okay, so as you can see in that picture, everyone had their hands, they raised their hands and they were participating, right? Okay, so let's continue. Then the teacher asked students if they watched movies. That was the first question. And all students raised their hands to participate. Then teacher projected on the board information about him. Okay, so the first question that the teacher asked was, do you watch movies? Right, and the students started participating, raising their hands. Right, then after that he used like a projector, he prepared a PowerPoint presentation to present this topic to the student. So the information that he had in the projected on the board was, I usually watch movies. Right, then some students started asking the question such as, what is your favorite movie? Right, so they start interacting. Then teacher gave students a board game with some incomplete questions. Okay, so it was time for the students to practice. Students had to take turns to complete it with the correct form of the adverb of frequency. Then after completing the questions, they had to answer these questions. So students work in pairs, they were working in pairs. Each student took a turn to practice, right? So they had an opportunity to practice. All students were very engaged on the activity that they didn't feel when the class was over. They wanted more time to finish the activity, but the teacher told them that they would continue in the next class. I think this has happened to everyone when an activity is like, or the students are having fun with you in your class doing an activity, they don't want to finish it, right? They want to continue. So the same happened in this class. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so as you can see also in this second scenario, we have some reactions and some behaviors that the students have, right? So what we're going to do now, we're going to analyze the actions and also the reaction of the students, okay? So we're going to go back to the first scenario. We're going to analyze each behavior and also each reaction of the students, okay? But also I want you to take into account this question. Why did that happen? Okay, so that's the question that I would like you to think about. I'm going to project here the part of the class that I want you to analyze. Then we're going to write on the comment. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to appreciate if you can write here the comments and write the answer of this question. Why did that happen? Okay, so this is the first one. I'm going to read for you. Number one, when the teacher entered in the classroom, students stood up and some of them asked permission to go to the restroom. These students didn't come back. Why do you think this happened? Why do you think this happened with the students? Why they didn't come back? Okay, I'm reading your comments. Why do you think this happened in this class? The students enter and then some students stood up and some of them asked permission to go to the bathroom, but these students didn't come back. So why do you think this happened in this class? Okay, because the teacher focused only on the content. Yeah. So let's see. Okay. Yes, because they knew that the class would be boring. Yes, they didn't enjoy the class, right? Okay, so let's see what I have here. Okay, students were not interested in the class. So that's something that you were saying, right? That they thought that the class would be boring. right? So that was the first reaction. That was the first reaction that the students had, right? Great. So let's go with number 2. It says, while the teacher was presenting the topic, some students on the back didn't pay attention and started bothering each other. Okay, so the teacher was presenting on the board, like writing examples and also the structure, and some students on the back, they started like bothering each other. Why do you think this happened? Okay, what do you think this happened in the class? Okay, yes. They prefer to do other things than paying attention on the class, right? Okay. Okay. Right. Okay, exactly. Because they were not participating, they were not asked to participate, right? So let's see what I have here. Okay, I have here another idea. Yes, they were not interested in the class. Maybe they started like bothering each other because the topic might not be relevant or meaningful for them. So because they just were like listening and they didn't like get the idea of the class, so the topic was not relevant neither meaningful for them. That's why they were not paying attention, right? Okay, thank you so much for your comments. Yes, they were boring. Okay, next. Okay, teacher continued talking about the topic, okay, and writing some examples. Some students got distracted with some posters, okay, that's what I was saying. That they had, the posters that they had in the classroom, right? So the teacher was explaining only the topic, focusing on the examples and also the structure of the topic. And some students got distracted in that specific moment. Why do you think this happened in the class? Because they don't find the topic interesting. Okay, so let's see. Okay, yes, and this is something that you already were saying, right? Students were not involved in the class, right? They were not involved. So that's why students like get distracted very fast because they are not part of the class. They are not like participating. They're not sharing. So that's why they start like bothering each other or they get distracted very quickly, right? Okay, so let's continue. A teacher wrote a sentence on the board. Okay, so it was time to practice. And asked students to complete it. Everyone was quiet, and only one student answered and completed that sentence. What do you think this happened? What was the reason? Okay. So let's see what you have. Yes, thank you so much for all your comments. Okay, yes, they didn't have like any visual material. Okay, yes, teacher didn't notice if the students were like understanding or were learning the topic, right? Okay, right. Thank you so much for your comments. Yes, so here I have, this student might have known already about the topic. So maybe you have noticed this. There are some students who already know about the topic. And if a student or the rest of the students don't participate, so if it's only one, so that means that could be because the student already know about the topic. So maybe that was the case. That's why only one student could answer this sentence. They didn't understand. Yes, because they were distracted, right? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your comments. Okay, so now we're going to move to the scenario number 2, right? So in this lesson, in this class, the teacher used many activities or other activities that were, or he involved all the students, right? So let's analyze each behavior and also each reaction of the students. And also keep in mind this question, why did that happen? Okay, so I'm gonna read this for you. Teacher started with a class with a short game called guessing the action or guessing the verb. First, teacher participated, then students took a turns to pass in front and do the activity. Everyone had the opportunity to participate and they were very happy. Okay, so the first, the teacher entered in the class, and the first thing that he did, it was an activity, right? It was the guessing the action activity. So at the end, students were very happy because they were all participating, right? So why do you think this happened? What is the reason? Teacher is enthusiastic and students perceive it. Right. Yes. If the teacher goes to the class with a positive and optimism mind, all the activities that he planned for the class, so it could work all for them, right? So here I have all students were involved, what I was saying, in the activity, and they worked a collective. Okay, all students were involved in the activity and they worked all together, which fostered a relationship, right? So as you can see in this specific part of the class, is the teacher only demonstrated at the beginning, right? And then he let all the students do the activity and all of them participated, right? So when we involve all the students in our activity, in our lesson, what we achieve with this is that we foster the relationship among them, right? Okay, thank you so much. So let's go with the second part. Okay, it says after the activity, teacher told students that they would talk about how often they do their favorite activities and hobbies. All students started sharing what activities they do every day. Okay, so this number 2 was a second activity that the teacher did with his students, right? So he started like activating students' knowledge. He first said that the topic of that class, it was going to be about how often they do their favorite activities or hobbies, right? So, and as you can see, the result, it was that all students started sharing what activities they do every day, okay? So exactly, thank you so much for all your comments. I'm gonna share this to you. The reason why this happened, it was because a brief high interest activity at the beginning of a lesson will help students focus on the content, right? So if we activate our students' knowledge, or we tell them that we are going to talk about something that they already know, like that they do almost all the time. So students like just focus on the content, right? Okay, let's continue. Okay, so I have the next part. Teacher asks students if they watched movies. Okay, that was the first question that the teacher asked his students, and all students raised their hands to participate. Then a teacher projected on the board information about him. Some students started asking the teacher questions such as, what is your favorite movie, right? So here, as you can see, he asked a question. Do you watch movies? And if we mention this specific topic to our students, I know that they think or they imagine all the movies that they already have watched, right? So what the result of this question it was that everyone wanted to participate. And in order to help the students, the teacher used a PowerPoint presentation or some visual material, and he presented his information. So he said, I usually watch movies, right? And what happened after that, it was that a student asked the teacher, what is your favorite movie? So as you can see, the interaction starting from here, right? Okay, so why did that happen? Making the content personal helps students remain focused on the lesson. Okay. 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 So we have the last one. This it was like the very last part of the activity or the last part of the lesson that the teacher had with his student. So the teacher gave student a board game in order to practice with some incomplete questions, right? So students had to complete this board game with the correct form of the adverb of frequency. Students worked in pairs. Each student took turns to practice. All students were very engaged on the activity that they didn't feel when the class was over. They wanted more time to finish the activity, but the teacher told them that they would continue in the next class, right? Okay, so why did this happen? Because students often engage when working an activity that challenge their knowledge, particularly in teams or pair work activities, right? So when we have some challenge activities for our students, they get engaged with everyone, with the class, and also with what they are doing, right? With the content as well. And what they want is like just to try to figure out by themselves, right? Okay, so now that we finish describing and analyzing all the reaction and also the behavior of the students, I want you to ask this question: which lesson was more effective? It was the lesson number one, where the teacher only like just wrote and used the board to write some examples, the explaining the topic, and the students started like bothering, or the lesson number two, where the students were like more involved in the class and they participated in almost all the activities. So which one do you think was more effective? So I would like you to answer or to comment your answer in the chat box. And I would like you to answer this question as well. Why, right? If you think that is lesson number one, why? If it's lesson number two, why, right? Okay, so I'm reading your comments. Okay, so which lesson was more effective? Was it number one? Was it number two? And why? Okay. So I'm reading your comments. Which lesson was more effective? Was it lesson number 1? Was it lesson number 2? And why? Okay. Option 2. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so if you said that the lesson number 2 was like more effective, so the answer is yes, right? Because now we're going to find out the why, right? Why was the lesson more effective than the other one, right? Okay, so here I'm going to present to you now some strategies in order to engage your students, okay? So I would like you to pay attention to this, and at the end, I'm going to ask you a question, okay? So as you can see, the first one is hold a meaningful conversation. So talk about what might interest them more, right? So as you can see, this happened in lesson number 1 or number 2. This first strategy, was it in lesson number 1 or lesson number 2? Scenario number 1 or scenario number 2? Hold a meaningful conversation. Right, okay, exactly. This first strategy happened in the lesson number 2, right? Because they were talking about a meaningful conversation, right? Something that students they usually have in their lives. So then we have strategy number 2, turn on music. Sometimes playing soft background music can motivate students, right? I said sometimes. Oh, here we find the word sometimes because, as we know, we cannot play music all the time, right? We should like play music in very specific activities where music is necessary, right? Okay, the number 3 says use technology, graphics, and illustration. So as you know, now students are very involved in technology. So integrating technology into their learning will help hold their attention. In that way, we can like help them hold all their attention, right? And also graphics and illustration. So something that you were saying, like using visual material. So in that way, we can help students remember the content, right? That's like much easier. Create collaborative learning. In this way, we will foster relationship, right? We can create like a safe and positive environment in our classroom. Then we have the next one, create challenging activities. Students will often engage more when working on activities that challenge their knowledge, right? So they get like very engaged in all activities if they find it like challenging. Make it game. Game and competitive activities foster high students' engagement, right? As you know as well, all the game students like all the games that we do in our classrooms, right? And I think they usually have a favorite one, right? Limit a lecture. It should be brief and highly focused mini lesson, and it's recommended like to do or to have like 8 or 15 minutes maximum, like for us to speak in the class, and the rest of the time we need our students to have that time to practice or to work with the rest of the classmates, right? And this one, summarize the work at the end. It will increase memory for the content. This is also like a good strategy because in that way we can help our students um, like practicing by themselves, I'm sorry, and also like to know more about the topic by sharing with each other. Okay, so from these strategies that I have here, I created this criteria. Okay, so as you can see in this criteria, I have 7 questions. I created like or I transformed them into questions, and I have a yes column, a no, and some comments also in order to analyze the activity that we can do before planning. So as question number 1, it says, is this lesson or activity meaningful and relevant for the students? So this specific question is related to this first strategy, hold a meaningful conversation, right? So is this lesson activity meaningful and relevant for the students? Also, I have number 2, do students need background music to perform this lesson activity? Is this activity lesson dynamic for the student? Do I need visual material for this lesson activity? Is it necessary to use technology for this lesson activity? Is this activity lesson challenging for my students? And the last one is this student-centered activity, like when students have most of the time like participating and talking, right? So as you can see, this criteria, we can use it when we want like to analyze our lesson or a specific activity that we can do with our students or that we are planning to do with our students, right? Okay, so now what we're going to do is to apply this criteria by observing 3 different activities. Okay, so I'm going to present you 3 different activities, and I'm gonna ask you please if you can take a picture of the criteria, because I would like you to use it while we are observing and paying attention to the okay, we're paying attention to the activities that we have. Okay, so this is it. I really appreciate it if you can take a picture. In that way, we can analyze all the activities that I'm going to present you. So I'm going to give you some minutes for you just to take a picture. Okay, I think you're done. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. So we're going to go back to the presentation. So this is the criteria. Okay, so I'm going to present you 3 different activities, and I would like you just to write on your notebook or a piece of paper if it's a yes or a no, according to the according how the activity is planned. Okay, so let's apply these criteria. Okay, so this is the first activity. The name of the activity is Simon Says, and our topic is color and objects. Okay, so teacher, Simon says bring a blue object. Okay, so students run and look for the object. One student takes a sweater and gives it to his teacher, right? Then the teacher asks the name of the object and its color, right? Okay, so then the teacher asked, what is this? And all students answer, a blue sweater, okay? And then the teacher says, Simon says, bring brown object, okay? So the rest of the students were looking for the object, and the first object that they found, it was a shoe, okay? So the student gives the shoe to the teacher, and the same. The teacher asked, what is this? A brown shoe, right? Okay, so this is the first activity. So now let's analyze this activity. Okay, so let's analyze this activity. I'm going to ask you questions. So if you can write if it's a yes or a no in the chat box, please, so that we can analyze all together. So the question number 1, it says, is this lesson, in this case activity, right? Is this activity meaningful and relevant for the students? What do you think? Yes? No? If you think that is a no, you can like write a comment right here. Okay, number 2, do students need background music to perform this activity? What do you think? Yes? No? Number 3, is this lesson or activity dynamic for the students? Number 4, do I need visual materials for this activity? Okay, number 5, is it necessary to use technology for this activity? Number 6, is this activity challenging for my students? And number 7, is this a student-centered activity, like students talking time, or students had most of the participation? So what do you think? Yes, no. Okay, so now if you have all of the criteria, yes, so you can write on the comment that you have 7 over 7. Or you select only like 2, you can write 2 over 7, right? So just I would like to see how many yes you selected. Seven, yes. Okay, great. Okay. 7. Okay. 6, 5. Okay, so that means if you have 5 criteria, like all yes, so that means that our criteria works, right? Because Simon says, for example, the question number 5, is it necessary to use technology for this activity? For Simon says, maybe in some cases, or maybe not, right? So it's a no. So if you have 5, if you have 6, or if you have 7, that is perfect, right? So as you can see, we experiment this criteria with this first activity, and we can say that it works, right? So now let's go with the next activity. I'm going to present you another activity. So this is the second activity, okay? So the topic is classroom object. Okay, so the teacher says, today we will review the vocabulary from last lesson. Take out a sheet of paper and write down the following. And the teacher starts dictating. A book, chair, desk, pencil. And students or a student says, this is boring. I don't remember how to write a second word, right? So that was the reaction of the student, okay? So this is our second activity, and we're going to do the same. We're going to analyze our second activity, okay? So let's see. Number one, is this activity meaningful and relevant for our students? So if it's yes or no. Do students need background music to perform this lesson or this activity? Is this activity dynamic for the students? I would say no, because they were sitting and only writing what the teacher is saying. Do I need visual materials for this activity? Okay, maybe for the teacher, but not for the students, right? So it's a no, because students don't have a visual material. They don't see, they don't have like the words or a picture at least in order to write the words, right? Number 5, is it necessary to use technology for this activity? I don't think so. No, right? Is this activity challenging for my students? No, because here, as you can see, students are just writing the words. They are not doing anything else, right? And number 7, is this a student-centered activity? What do you think about number 7? I would like to see. Is this a student-centered activity? Activity number 2. No, right? Yes, exactly. It was more like teacher center, right? Student didn't have like any participation, only the teacher had like that participation, right? Thank you so much. So as you can see, okay. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, for this specific activity, all of our criteria, it's like no, right? Our answers are no. So that means that this activity won't work very well with our students. We won't have them engaged in our class, right? So this activity doesn't work or won't work for our classes, okay? And this is the third activity. This is the last one. Our topic for this activity is parts of the body. The name is Hockey Pokey Song. I think you have done this with your students. We have used this song with your students. So the teacher says, hey guys, stand up and let's make a circle. Do you like music? Students, yes. Teacher, today we will practice the parts of our body with a song. Please repeat after me, okay? So the teacher first does the example, and then teacher. Now it's your turn. So students sing the song correctly, right? So they start like doing by themselves and they start singing by themselves, right? So they are doing this activity, okay? We're going to do the same. Number 1, is this activity meaningful and relevant for our students? Yes. I will say yes. And number 2, do students, right? Because they need music in order to sing and also to dance. Is this activity dynamic for the students? Yes. Do I need visual material for this activity? I would say yes. For example, if the teacher decided to use a projector, like to project or to have a video, on the board. In that way, students like can mimic all the actions that the video, what they observe in the video, right? So yes, I will say yes. Is it necessary to use technology for this activity? Yes, we need a speaker, right? We need a computer maybe. Is this activity challenging for my students? Okay, so as you can see in the picture, we have kids, right? No more teenagers, they are kids. So I will say yes, because they need to follow the song in order to perform well the activity. And number 7, is this a student-centered activity? Okay, so as you can see in the last part, we have all the students doing the activity, no more the teacher, right? First, it was the teacher. He demonstrated, gave an example. Then the second part, it was that students were doing all together, right? So yes. Okay. So one more time, we could see that our criteria work works for this last activity, right? So as you can see, we can use this criteria when before presenting an activity or when we are planning. In that way, we will know if the activity of the lesson could be, or we can engage students into our class, right? Okay. Yes. Thank you so much. Okay. So now I have some techniques and suggestions to engage your students. Okay, so based on my experience, and also I would like to share with you some techniques that I have used with my students in order to engage them. So I have this number 1. The name of the technique is learning your name, right? So as you can see, when we have, when it's the first time, or it's the first day that we work with our students, okay, so they usually expect like a lot from us, right? And also we expect a lot from them. So with this activity, with this technique, we can get to know them, and also we can get to know the personality that each of our students have, right? So here we have the description, gives students a piece of paper where they have to write. We have 2 examples here. So doing this with our students, we can see how our students are. For example, if a student writes with big and bold letters, that indicates that means that the teacher, I'm sorry, the student has confidence, and he always wants to be like, or to have attention, to have the teacher attention, to have his classmates attention, right? And when we see, or if a student writes with tiny letters, that indicates that the student is shy, or she has a very low self-esteem, right? Okay, so let's go with another activity. Okay, so also we can work this activity, this technique with our students. The name of the technique is station game. With this technique, we can get to know the interest that each of our students have, right? So we can paste pictures on the wall of different hobbies, like listening to music, play any sports, like different sports, movies, different types of music, and also books. And then we can ask our students to go and stand up next to a hobby that they like the most, right? And having all our students in different stations, we can ask. For example, if a student is standing next to the picture of movies, we can ask this question: what is your favorite movie? If also we can ask this: what books do you like to read? Right? So in that way, or with this activity, we can get to know about our students, like not asking them directly, but we can learn from them by all through this activity, right? Okay, so we're going to finish with this workshop, answering these two questions. I would like to comment on the chat box. Which techniques from the techniques that we had in this workshop or strategies would you like to apply in your next lesson? So I would like to select one or two that you really liked, and you can comment on the chat box. So I would like to see what you think about these techniques and strategies that we talk about today. Okay, station game. It was my favorite because motivate all the intelligence motivated the students. Okay, right. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for your comments. The station game, right? Yes, it is also my favorite one because in that way we can get to know our students um, through that activity. Dictation. Okay. Would you use the dictation technique the same way as I presented here? How would you use it? Right. Okay. Yes, I'm very happy to know that you would like to use the criteria that I presented today. I hope you find this workshop very helpful and useful for you to apply all the techniques and strategies in your classes, right? So I'm gonna finish here. So if you have questions or if you want to say something, you can do it in the chat box, and in that way we can read them.
Thank you so much, Pam Saloj, for such a great conference. We have some questions though. We'd love you to answer. So those are some of the questions participants wrote in the chat. So the question number 1 says, can we use make it game at the beginning of the class?
Sure. Yes. In order to engage our students since the very beginning of our lesson, we can do an activity, maybe to introduce a topic or to get to know them. In that way, students can like we can motivate them in since the very beginning.
Okay, thank you so much. Now the next question we have, it says, if the Hockey Pokey song could help to strengthen their spelling.
Okay. Maybe not like at all, like not spelling, pronunciation, I would say, because students start singing the song and practicing how they can how to pronounce the words, parts of the body, and also the verse that the song mentioned, right? Spelling, maybe we can, or you can use a different activity but with the same song. For example, where they had to fill in the blank with some of the vocabulary or verbs. And in that way, students also can listen and write. So in that way, they can work the spelling part.
Thank you so much. Now, the next question we have is, can you give us some techniques or strategies that we can use in our virtual classes?
Okay. I think this is something very important as well, because if we already know our students, it will be much easier for us to know what activities we can use. For example, the criteria that I presented today, you can use that also to analyze the activity that you plan, that you are thinking about using in your class. So I would say that you can also use the criteria. In that way, you can know better or learn, analyze better the activity that you are planning to use.
Okay, so thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you again for solving those questions and taking the time to share this information with us. Right now, for our audience, you can find in the comments the attendance that is being shared in the chat. So please make sure to fill it with your information and the one shared in every single conference you attend, as this is how we will sum up your hours of participation for your diplomas. So this has been all for this conference. We invite you to join us for our next ones during the week, and also the one starting at 5 p.m. that is task-based learning in this channel. And we also have creating language environment and our second channel, Idioma Susac. So please have a wonderful afternoon. And Pam Ixchely, thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you to all of you, and thank you so much for your attention. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon too. Bye-bye.